Now we get an awful lot of comments about why can't Ford or BMW make a mass market car that takes over the world? They did it with petrol. They are struggling to do it with EVs. What's gone wrong? I'm Dave. Welcome to Dave Takes It On. Let's have a look into this because it is totally self-inflicted. So let's just go back a little bit. All these companies, the Fords, the General Motors, BMWs, Mercedes, anyone who makes petrol cars, they are classed as what we call the legacy auto industry. They've been going forever. Someone like Mercedes, they were going before 1900. Amazing. Daimler was one of the very first. And then obviously Ford came along in the early 1900s with mass production line and everything else, and it's taken off from there. So over the last 100 years, most of these companies have been around and they've grown into what they are today, which is absolutely massive companies, big corporations, massive turnover, dominating the world in car sales. And it's all based on ICE, internal combustion engine. So it's petrol, diesel, hybrids, plug-in hybrids, full hybrids, anything that burns fuel. This is an ICE car. And so over the last 100 years, they've built it up. They got really good at it. They've made some nice profits along the way. They've had some hiccups. Some of them gone bust, had to be bailed out. Others have fallen by the wayside. But generally speaking, these are big organisations today. So they've had a certain amount of success. And they make all of their money from ICE sales. That's it, up until recently. Now, when you look at someone like Tesla, they had to start from nothing. They didn't have an ICE industry. They didn't have a factory making ICE cars. They literally started from a piece of paper. Well, we've bought this cheap GM factory in Fremont in California. What are we going to do with it? What are we going to make? How are we going to make it? Where are we going to get the bits from? Everything else. It was literally starting from scratch, and they didn't have a significant amount of money to be able to start a car company that could take on the world. And so they went through the process. They decided the first thing they got to do is make a really expensive car that makes a load of profit, a very niche car. But with the profit they make from that, they also get a lot of experience. And with that profit and experience, they then make a cheaper car. So the first one was over $100,000. Second one, Model S and Model X, they were around about $50,000, $60,000, about half price. And with those, they learnt an awful lot more from it. They learned that a lot of the parts they wanted, they couldn't actually buy over the counter. So they had to set up their own manufacturing facilities called vertical integration. Instead of buying components in and just becoming an assembly plant, you actually make all your own components. And that's where they are. They had to be today because there was nothing around. And then that was a success, but they still lost a lot of money. They were borrowing heavily. Several times they've almost gone bust. And then eventually 2017 was the launch of the Model 3, and it was literally hit or bust. If it wasn't a success, Tesla was finished. They would have gone bankrupt. As it happened, it was an instant success. They just got the sweet spot right, and they just started selling millions of these things. It was just overnight success. And for the first time in 10 years, Tesla broke out into profit. They were making a profit on every car they sold. Which was an amazing feat in itself. And then they've gone on, so they're now still making a profit. So they now have a lot more money coming in because they make a profit on every car they sell. They got so much money coming in, they can diversify into other things. If you look at the legacy auto industry, they took a very different approach. I'm going to generalise here, so they're not all quite exactly the same, but very similar. And what they said was, we're the experts. We've been making these things for 100 years. We know what we're doing. These are about as good as they're going to get at this stage in the development. And it's where all of our money comes from. We don't have anything else. We have ICE cars. Hybrid's still an ICE car. And so, if anyone out there expects us as a huge, giant success of story and everything, to shut down our ICE division and convert everything over to EVs and spend a fortune on that, learn. It's going to take several years to learn, get through it, get all the supply chain sorted out and everything else. And then when we suddenly launch our EVs, nobody wants them. Yeah, that's the last thing they want, because they will have shut down a very successful business, they will have spent all the money, and they will have nothing. So what they did was it was what I call the half-hearted approach. It made a lot of sense, but would never work. What they said was, we are going to have a philosophy, a principle, that whatever we do, we must not affect our ICE car sales. Absolutely sacrosanct, can't change them. So anything we make can't be as good as the ICE cars. We're just not going to do it. We do not want our ICE customers to stop buying our ICE cars where we do make a profit and switch on to our new EVs, which we know for the first 3, 5 or 10 years will never make a profit. While we're ramping up production, we'll never make a profit on them. So we do not want our customers stopping buying ICE to buy the EVs, because that's a way to bankruptcy. If we lose our ICE income and we make a loss on our EVs, we're bankrupt. So what we have to do is we have to produce EVs which aren't as good as our ICE cars. That's the first rule. Second thing is they can't be cheaper, because if they're cheaper, people will say, oh, I don't care if they're not as good, I'll have one because they're cheaper. So they must be dearer than the ICE cars. And then they've got to look at the technology, in that if, for example, everyone who wants to buy one can charge at home and you can charge them for a quarter the price of petrol, there are some people who go, I don't care if they're rubbish, I don't care if they're not very good, I'll have one because they're so cheap to run. So they can't be good. So what you have to do is come up with a compromise. We have to get involved in them. We know EVs are the way forward. They have to be. There's no doubt about that. Anyone out there thinks EVs are going to fail? They can't. It's way past that point already. And that's because of things like damage to the planet, pollution, oil industry, politics and everything. So they're not going to fail. But what we want is an EV that's not very good, but we can make a lot of profit. So we have to have it very expensive. One company did actually do something different, and that, well, looked at something different, and that was Volkswagen. And they had someone called Herrick. He was the CEO at the time, and he said, and this was on the back of Dieselgate, which hit Volkswagen very hard. He said, look, our petrol business is really suffering, our ICE business really suffering after Dieselgate. We're going to go through many years of really hard selling. We're not going to have a respected name in the industry. And if we're heading towards EVs, we ought to take this opportunity now, while we're not making any money from the ICE cars, because nobody's buying our diesels, they don't trust us, we ought to switch to EVs. Switch 100% to EVs. Let's start making really good EVs, better than what we used to make for the ICE cars, and try and make them same price or slightly cheaper, and we'll have a world-beating industry in about 4 or 5, 6 years that will be the envy of the world. And the board listened to him and sacked him. What? End our ICE industry? You are crazy. They literally sacked him on the spot. So you have this philosophy that the legacy auto didn't want to make EVs, but they had to. They didn't want them to be better than ICE. They couldn't be. And they didn't want them to be cheaper than ICE. They couldn't be. And they didn't want to have any real serious advantages over the ICE cars, because the last thing they would allow would be anything that damaged their ICE customers. They made a calculation that there were enough people out there who weren't existing Ford customers buying ICE cars, but wanted EVs. They'd maybe never bought a Ford before in their life, but they wanted an EV. So Ford and the others decided, well, look, if we make an EV and we make it half decent, then someone who's never bought our ICE cars before might actually come to us for an EV, because they want an EV and there's so little choice out there. So we need to make EVs, we need to make niche cars, and we need to try and capitalise. So what we would achieve, this wasn't just Ford, but what we would achieve, would keep our ICE business intact, all our existing customers would carry on buying ICE cars from us, and we would gain some new customers who were buying these newfangled EVs. And if the newfangled EVs didn't take off, didn't make any money, that's fine, just stop them. If it took off, well, we've already got cars, etc. So that was the approach they all took. So the early EVs were very simply petrol cars. They took out all the gubbins they didn't need, the engines, the gearboxes, the exhaust pipes, the fuel tanks and everything, and then had to redesign all the batteries and everything to fit in the available space. And these cars were not very good, main reason being that they were built on a chassis which was designed for a petrol car with a big heavy engine in the front, big heavy fuel tank at the back, and that's not what an EV is. So they were not designed for it. They were overly heavy. Some of the early cars, you look now at a typical EV, you're looking at 16, 17, 1800 kilos. Some of these early attempts from the likes of Mercedes, BMW and Ford, you're looking at 2,500 kilos. These are just crazy. And that, of course, gives you poor handling. It gives you very poor efficiency. It's a big, heavy car. You've got to get off the line. And it gives you very poor range. So they achieved one thing. They made an EV that wasn't better than their ICE cars. Yeah. But they weren't that good. Now, they're always going to sell some. First of all, there will be those new customers who've never bought a Ford before, but they want an EV and they don't want to buy Tesla or BYD Chinese. They like the name of Mercedes or BMW or Ford, and so they would attract some new customers. But the cars weren't a success. They weren't efficient, they weren't good. They were basically just a petrol version. If you want to see this in action, just have a look at Mercedes and BMW. They both do exactly the same. They have a petrol car or diesel car, and they just strip it out and put EV stuff in it. So EQA, that's the Mercedes got a direct equivalent. It's the same body shell, and the same with the BMWs. So they had a choice. Customers going in the showroom, they could go and buy a EQA for £60,000 or £70,000, or they could buy the petrol equivalent for £35,000, £40,000, and they were hoping they would drag in some new customers. So what's happened is they have taken this middle road, which has led them down a dead end, because in the meantime, the ICE sales are falling. Not catastrophically yet, but that's on its way. But the industry in general believes that peak petrol ICE was 2016. That was the highest sales they ever had, and it's been on a decline since. They have some years where it's good, but it's nowhere near anywhere where it was back in 2016. So they've had a triple whammy in effect, because the ICE market that they were relying on is shrinking. And as it shrinks, there is still the same number of companies fighting a smaller and smaller audience. The audience customer base is also smaller, because 10 or 15% of it has now gone over to EVs. Not with them, but gone over to EVs. And so they're experiencing a real shrinking customer base. It's getting smaller every single year. The EVs haven't taken off because the early adopters bought them, loved them and everything else, but they're not very good cars, a lot of them. They are heavy, they're very inefficient. They are effectively just a petrol version with an EV battery in it, not something brand new. And so consequently, the EV business, they've poured billions into that. Billions. Some of them are designing and building their own new factories, some of them getting into battery production. There've been a massive investment into it, and here we are about 5-6 years later, and it hasn't worked. If you look at General Motors, how many cars did they produce last year? It's embarrassing to even say how many EVs Ford and General Motors, and they sold virtually the same, actually sold last year. When you look at it, a multi-billion-pound industry that's been going for 100 years. So they have seen the existing ICE market drop off, and they are losing money on it. I know they have sales booms every now and again, but generally speaking, it is going downhill. And what's keeping, for example, Ford going is the commercial side of it. That is unchecked. So they've seen the ICE market drop, the ICE profits, the ICE revenue, everything has dropped, and they haven't seen anything come back from the EV division. In fact, they're actually making more loss than they've ever made. Typical Mackie Mustang loses about $40,000 to $50,000 for every car they sell. That's how much they poured into it and how many cars they've sold. And you divide it one by the other, and you're finding that they sell them for $50,000 or $60,000, but they lose $50,000. It means these cars are costing about $100,000 each. It's just a crazy situation. So they found themselves at the moment in this nowhere land, middle of nowhere, where the half-hearted approach hasn't worked. But what it has done, it's swallowed up massive amounts of money, and it has also put off their customers, their potential customers who were thinking of buying an EV from them, because they now don't have a good reputation. Volkswagen are going through a real problem at the moment with software. Volvo's gone through a problem with software. Ford's gone through a problem with software. Lots of them have had a problem with reliability. They've had battery problems. They've nightmare of problems, and none of them have really sorted these out. So they're finding at the moment that their core business is dropping, and the costs have rocketed on EVs, but nobody's buying them, and they're certainly not making a profit on them. And they've reached a point now where they're starting to wonder what they have to do to get out of it. What they have to do to get out of it is what they should have done 5, 6, 7 years ago, and they should have said back then. EVs are the future. We're going to chuck everything into EVs. We'll keep the ICE factories going in the meantime. We're not going to develop anything new. No new motors coming out, no new innovations. Let's just flog those factories to death. They're long since paid for. We're making a nice profit on each of the ICE cars. So let's just churn them out, drop the price a bit. Let's get mass sales. But in the meantime, let's build up the EV side of it. It's going to take us 3 or 4 years. We had a dabble, didn't work. We don't know what we're doing. We know a lot better now. So while we're doing that, we'll keep the company ticking over on the ICE sales from the existing cars. That will tail off on its own. We're losing ICE customers anyhow. We're losing ICE customers to EV buyers. So that's going to diminish. But if we get it right, the EVs that we bring out, these are going to be custom made, they're going to be designed. We have got the experience for mass production. We can come out with an absolute killer. It's got to be better than the ICE version. Everything about it has to be better. Bigger, faster, better, more gadgets, more features, whatever it is, must be better. So that when we come out with it, nobody's going to say, I'm going to carry on buying the ICE. They're all going to go, thank you, switch straight over onto EVs. But the trouble is, they've had their fingers burnt once, they're not going to do it. And so they're just in this spiral. They don't know what to do. The last time someone tried to switch 100% EV, Herman Dies, he got sacked. And so nobody's actually saying, right, we went into it half-heartedly. We need to redouble our effort and make a real success of it. They're not saying that. An awful lot of people at the top are saying, look, EVs might well not succeed. Let's just stick with ICE. Let's do everything with ICE, develop new cars and everything else, hybrids if we have to, and let's just keep the ICE going along. So they're still in this denial, in this halfway house. It's a real problem for them because having had the fingers burnt once, it's going to be very difficult for some of these companies to go back into it and say, actually, we should have gone in 100% full steam ahead in the first place. The reason it failed was because we didn't. Instead, they're going to blame EVs. There's no market for EVs. Even if we do decide we've got to go into EVs, they don't want them out there. Nobody ever remembers. It's them that telling their customers that they shouldn't buy them, should buy the ICE. Anyway, that's another matter. So they're finding themselves at the moment in this halfway house, and it really is killing them. We're starting to see at the moment some of the big ones starting to really fail. Maserati's one recently. Stellantis has announced that they've lost their way. They haven't made any EVs. They don't have the premium prestige brand anymore. They don't have the performance brand anymore. I mean, you can go and buy an MG4 and it will outperform a Maserati. So they've lost their place. And just this week, Carlos Tavares, he's announced that if Maserati can't find a way, we'll just have to shut them down. And we're going to see this happening. Toyota at the moment, massive turmoil within the company. Volkswagen, a huge problem with software. Volvo, huge problem with software. Ford, they've had to write off an awful lot more of their profit, put it aside for warranty claims, because in their quest to keep the ice going, they've cut their costs and they're now getting more warranty claims. So they're in the middle of nowhere, and I don't believe any of them will actually take the step that they need to. Particularly when, if you look at someone like Stellantis, they're now doing deals with China, joint ventures they call them, where let the Chinese build them, we'll bring them over here, we'll assemble them and badge them up Fiat or Citroen, and we'll sell them, and people will buy them. So they're going to just give up. But the problem with that is, what is Stellantis? It will end up as a Chinese company, and at some point the Chinese company will say, we actually don't need Stellantis. We're making them, we're shipping them. Why do we need them? So thanks very much, Stellantis, for letting us into Europe, but we're now going to take over. And of course, that's what's just happened. Latest figures this week, Chinese imports, these are built in China and sold directly into Europe, have now taken 11% of the EV market. So a lot of these legacy auto companies, if they can't do a decent deal and keep it going, they're going to find themselves out of business. It's not this year. I think within 2 to 5 years, there'll be several very big names that just disappear. Anyway, that's my comment. If you've got any different opinions, leave some comments down below and let's see where you think things are going. But thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed this, please click the like button. If you'd like to see more, please subscribe. I'm Dave.